That sounds fantastic. That sounds
Yeah,
perfect.
it was
Like
it was pretty cool.
the kind of wind and the waves and the curtains.
It was pretty
Oh, I'm
cool.
so glad that you had some nice time.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you more about it later, but man,
Oh,
it
that's
was it
wonderful.
was my goodness, it was such a great time. Um, I see that we've started. So, um, for those of you who are wondering what Nella and I were just talking about, I just got back from vacation Saturday. My wife and I went to Belize for 9 days, and we literally did nothing for the first six. Like, and when I say nothing, I mean like we went to the beach and read books and took naps and ate food and did nothing all day, and it was fantastic. It was just amazing. But I won't bore you with all the details on that because I could talk for hours about us doing nothing. So we're going to get started in a couple of minutes. We have a few people that we're waiting on to jump in to get that have registered that aren't here yet. So I'm just going to give them a couple more minutes. But we're locked and loaded and ready to go. Just some housekeeping procedures. If you have any questions, I'm going to have time at the end. I don't think we're going to go more than maybe 20 to 25 minutes with this webinar. So we're definitely going to have some time at the end for questions. So if you have a question, you can either put your question in the questions tab in the lower right or in the chat tab. Either way, I'll see them. It absolutely does not matter. But good morning to all of you. I'm glad that you're here. And I'll get into kind of a formal introduction and all that stuff in just a couple of minutes. I see we have some more people jumping in. So we'll wait just a minute or two and then I'll get going. So good morning. Enjoy your coffee. I've got my water, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. And even then, just off the bat, I just want to make sure everybody can see my screen that's got the title of today's topic and what we're talking about. So if you can see it, just throw a quick yes in the chat. I would appreciate that. Good. I see some yeses coming in. All right. Awesome. I think we'll wait just one more minute. I see we've still got another. It looks like we got another 15 people that we're waiting on. Not a huge deal. We are recording this, so if by chance either you have to drop off or you want to share this with others, anything like that, this will definitely be recorded and we can send this out to you. And if I remember right, I think everybody gets it automatically once it's finalized and uploaded and all that good stuff. So keep an eye on your emails for that. All right, it's 9:04. I've waited long enough. Oh, we just got another person that came in. Great. So we'll get started. If anybody joins in a little bit late, no big deal. So good morning. Welcome to a Town Web webinar. Our topic for today is navigating records management and retention schedules for local municipalities. We're gonna talk about. There's definitely some distinctions on different levels of government, and we'll touch on those a little bit. But I'm very happy that all of you are here. It's Wednesday, so happy Hump Day. We're halfway to Friday, Friday Eve. But I hope everybody's having a really good week, and I will just kind of jump right in. So I see people can see my screen, which is great. So a little bit about me. My name is Chris Estrella. I am the government content insider for Town Web. I was a municipal clerk treasurer for almost 17 years in Wisconsin. We have a few Wisconsin folks, a few of my fellow cheeseheads on here. So I know we'll talk about Wisconsin a little bit as we go along in terms of records and schedules and all that kind of stuff. But a little bit about me. In addition to being the government content insider for Town Web, I also am a adjunct professor of public administration for Rochester University in Detroit, Michigan. I just got off contract. Woohoo! So had a great year with them. I'm also a past president of the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association. I love and I own the Green Bay Packers. I love the New York Yankees, but do not own them yet. And I love that In-N-Out Burger is just down the road for me, and I can get it whenever I want because I'm coming to you live and in living color from Las Vegas, Nevada. My wife and I lived in Wisconsin for 39 years, discovered that winter was just too much to deal with anymore, and just about 3 years ago, we sold everything, bought a house out here, and officially started our lives out here in September of 21, and we love it. No winter, the snow's on the mountains, it's fantastic, nothing to shovel. So I love that I can look at it, but I don't have to deal with it anymore. But also, as a former clerk, I also was a former records custodian across a number of municipalities, which should come as no surprise to anybody. Typically, the clerk is the records custodian. So I'm very familiar, not only from a user perspective and a resident perspective, but as a records custodian, what the things that we've all had to deal with in terms of, navigating and the records retention schedules and all that kind of stuff. So as I had mentioned at the very beginning, we're definitely going to have some time at the end for questions. So if you have any, feel free to drop them in the chat box or in the question box on the lower right-hand corner. Absolutely not a problem. We'll address those at the end, but we're just going to get started on everything. So I've got a couple of introductions that I want to share with you guys. This is Betty. Betty has been a clerk through at least 6 administrations, and we're leaving it kind of ambiguous here because it could be mayors, it could be presidents. Needless to say, she's been the clerk for quite some time. She loves her planner. She's got an old paper planner. She loves sticky notes. Fun fact, I also love sticky notes, but we'll just forget about that for now. Her flip phone is awesome, and she loves it. She does not need a smartphone. She doesn't want one. It doesn't add anything to her life. She still writes checks, but is cautious about using her credit card. So this is Betty. Some of you probably know some Bettys. Some of you might be some Bettys, and that is okay because Betty is awesome, and she is super knowledgeable about her job. Betty's deputy is Bella, and she is definitely on the younger side. She maybe is new to this whole clerk thing, which is totally cool because she's coming at things with a fresh perspective and willing to learn and just wanting to know everything. She loves all things technology, mainly because she grew up with it. It's really interesting just to see folks in that kind of age bracket that grew up with technology. Their comfort level is truly astounding. And kind of along those lines, she ordered the newest iPhone before it even came out. She was one of the first in line or first in line or online to get it. She has no idea what a checkbook is, and she doesn't keep cash in her purse like Betty does. So again, you might be a Bella, you might know a Bella, you might have kids that are Bellas, it's just to talk about not only the clerks here, but also the residents that we serve. We have a lot of people who fall in these two camps, but also camps in between. So keep those in mind as we go along too. So Town Web is you've got records that you deal with, and I know them, and we'll talk about some of them. But Town Web offers some solutions that can help you navigate through organizing your records electronically, through making things more digital, making you work more efficiently and effectively, and better serving your residents. And so we want you to partner with us. We offer digital services. The biggest thing I've seen since I first became a Town Web customer in 2007 is that a website is more of a communication tool than it has ever been before. It used to be, as a clerk, I would just put my information up on there, and most clerks would too. They would just put their information up on there, whether it's a form, a permit, a packet, an agenda, whatever. And we would tell people, go help yourself. All the information is out there. And now things have evolved to more of a communication tool. But as a part of that, the more information you put on a website, the more you're able to free up your physical space for the actual records that you need to keep. It's way easier to find stuff when it's organized. I'm going to talk about a personal example of mine in a few minutes, and other things that we offer to help with kind of the further digitization of records and stuff is we have online payments, we have online reservations, which means no more checks, no more whiteboard, no more planner. It's really, these are the expectations the public has now. And so it's really time for local governments to step up and get, I don't want to say get with the program, but it's really time for local governments to step up and meet those expectations that the public has. And so what I've got here, I'm gonna see if I can make this there a little bigger, but what this is, and forgive the handwriting, or not the handwriting, but the drawing, because it was mine. I'm going to use an example way back from when I was a deputy clerk treasurer administrator in the town of Blooming Grove in Dane County, Wisconsin. I want to talk about how important records are. And before I jump into that, a little water break here. It's very dry here in Las Vegas today, as it is every day. But I want to talk about, I wanted to pick a record that has an effect on everybody in some way or another. And so as a part of my job as deputy clerk treasurer, I would handle kind of the accident reports and how that, everything that would happen with our fire department. So this is the accident report, and I would handle some of it, but I would need it. And so let's just talk about this for a minute. So first, we have an accident. There's the police, they're responding, everything's good. A report is generated from that. And who needs that report? Well, it's really important. First is the vehicle owners. And if it's a one vehicle accident or two, whatever, those vehicle owners need that report typically to send to their insurance companies. They need to figure out who was at fault, all the stuff that comes with that, but they each need that report really to get off to the insurance companies and let them figure out what's going on. The fire department, the Blooming Grove Fire Department, needed these accident reports for two reasons. Number one, we always provided a summary of our town to our town board, either at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, of our call summaries. And so we can compile them with all the accidents that we have, give some vital statistics out, things like that. But more importantly is we had a very specific line item in our budget directly tied to incident responses. When we had an accident that we responded to that was outside of, say, a residence. So we had a couple of major highways. One was an interstate highway and one was a U.S. highway that crossed through our town. Unless they were a town resident, we sent them a bill, typically for $500 for the response. Now, 99 times out of 100, that would be forwarded on to the insurance company, taken care of, blah, 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 blah. But I had to set the budget line item for that year, and I needed to know how many accidents that we had that we were responded to and billed out, which I did the billing for, to budget for that for next year. So it was really important for me financially. What are we going to do? I mentioned this already. The insurance companies, they all wanted these accident reports. It's very important for them. They need to determine who's at fault, who's going to pay, if it's going to be evenly split, if there's a percentage, anything like that. The local media, if you live in a small or even a medium-sized town, you have a weekly newspaper, typically they will publish some sort of a summary of, police responses, of fire responses over the week, maybe over the month, something like that. And so they always wanted to reach out and get those statistics. I think, if I remember right, I think I sent them over monthly, and they would compile them and do whatever they would do with them. And then also police departments need them. Many for the same reasons as the fire department would, for vital statistics and providing call volume for the department, what they're responding to and how many times and where and that sort of thing. So if you think about it, this is just one. I wouldn't call it a tiny record, but this is just one record, and this affects 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sectors that I could just think of in my little example here. So if you think about the records that we all deal with every day, maybe an operator's license, a building permit, a mobile home park permit, tax bills, like just think about that and who needs those, who wants to see them. I could do a flow chart like this for any record, and it would probably look similar with just different departments on it. So just a personal example that that I did for almost 10 years. I was in charge of all this stuff, and it's always nice playing with other people's money. I'll say that. So we're going to move on. So how do records retention schedules differ? Well, there are really three different ways. Number one is the level of government that you're on, and by that I mean federal, state, county, local, anything like that. Dependent on what level of government you are in, that can have a say as to how long you keep it, like what type of file you need to keep it in. Can you go electronic? Do you need to have a hard copy? Things like that. The big one, though, here is the document. Documents and different types of documents have different types of retention schedules. I'm going to give a few examples in just a minute, but it was something that I can think. Again, I'll pick on myself as an example. In Wisconsin, we were required to keep emails forever. Now, that doesn't mean you have to keep them physically on your computer forever, but you at least need to have access to them forever. A physical copy of the minutes is required forever. I used to have my last municipality in Wisconsin was the town of Oakland. We had minute books that were this thick from the 1850s when the town was incorporated originally. And so it really is dependent on the document. There are some examples where it's, a couple of weeks, 90 days, things like that. I'll talk about those a little bit. But then the third is also dependent on the department and who the records custodian is. One area I was not a records custodian for is the police area. The police chief, at least in Wisconsin, I can't speak to other states, but in Wisconsin, the police chief is the records custodian for all police records. So if I ever got asked for an accident report, if I ever got asked for anything that the police handled, they took care of it. I'd send them over to chief and he would handle it for me. So it really depends on where you are in terms of what level of government you're in or who you're dealing with, what department you're coming across with. But really the big one is what document are you trying to house and for how long? So I'm going to talk about Wisconsin a little bit. In Wisconsin, I now, of course, I knew the budget one because I dealt with budgets. I was also a treasurer. But in Wisconsin, records retention schedules are governed by the Wisconsin Public Records Board. And so I just picked two examples. I picked the budget and I picked elections. And I've got my good friend here, a little baby paper notepad with my notes. And so budget records, depending on what the record is, you hold on to them for the fiscal year plus 4, 5, or 6 years later, and then you are allowed to destroy them or transfer them to the Wisconsin Historical Society. And I remember doing this when I was a clerk in Wisconsin. The Historical Society, if you have things that interest them, they'll come out to you. Like I have had some old maps that I just held on to forever and had like 8 or 9 copies of. They took some and then I destroyed the rest. But in terms of budget, it's very distinct, and I would share the link, but it's a lot of information. But the Public Records Board puts out documentation for all these different types of records, and the Historical Society really plays a role into that as well. And so it's very interesting. Like we used to save our budgets forever until I noticed like we don't need to keep these forever, and so we just started to get rid of stuff, and of course that freed up more physical space. The other one, kind of a contrast, is elections. And I was, of course, very familiar with this. In Wisconsin, the local clerks play a key role in administering elections. And the general rule is 22 months after the date of the election. But there are some exceptions. And again, my good friend, baby paper notepad, canvas statements are I think they're 90 days. Ballots, unused ballots, are 3 days after the election. Used ballots you have to hold on. We typically sent those to the county for safekeeping. And then absentee ballot applications, there's a different timeline for that as well. Something interesting that I found, the Wisconsin Historical Society, there's a notation from the Wisconsin Historical Society. They don't want any election records at all. This was the only thing, and I'm not like, I wasn't going into a blind, of course. I'm very familiar with the Public Records Board, but I didn't know they did not want election records. I found that very interesting and maybe a little bit telling as well. Maybe they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But it's very interesting. So we have, I'm going to pause here just for a second. We have as far as I'm aware, we have some folks who had signed up from New Jersey and North Dakota. I don't know if they're here, but I would love if you guys could share, or even other states. I think we've got some folks from Pennsylvania as well. If you could share just either in the chat, if you could just share like what a records retention schedule for a document like your budget, or if you have any elections materials, what those are for everybody. Because I don't know what those are. I certainly could have looked, but I'm looking for a little bit of participation here from folks in other states. So if you're in a state besides Wisconsin, type in the chat box what your records retention schedule is for a document. I'd love to share that with everybody here. And I'm going to take a quick water break. And I'm seeing if I don't see anybody typing anything in yet. Oh, we got something. Let's see. Do we have anybody from, say, Minnesota or anywhere else in the Midwest that could certainly share? Or again, I think I had mentioned Pennsylvania. Love to hear what your thoughts are on records retention and what those schedules are. This isn't weird for me at all. This is like teaching class for me. It's great. All right. Well, while you guys are formulating things, I think we'll come back to this at the end during our time for questions and answers. Absolutely not a problem. I'm going to go ahead and keep going. Let me just jump back to my screen here. Yes, anybody from Maryland or Minnesota, please chime in. So why are records so important to everyone? One of the things that I have experienced personally, and I'm sure all of you have, is that the clerk's office really is the hub for communication within any municipality. It just is. And if the clerk doesn't know the answer, the clerk typically knows where to find the answer or who has it. And so I went through and I just kind of listed a bunch of records and who they're important for. I talked about the accident report already, the police department, insurance, the media. Dog licenses are important to the dog owners, but also the county. In Wisconsin, the county got the majority of the cut for the dog license, so they needed to know how many were issued, blah, 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 mainly because they want their cut of the money. Voting statistics are super, super important to the media, but also the voting public. Obviously, this being an election year, all the election stuff is kind of at everybody's forefront, and everybody wants to make sure that statistics are right, numbers are correct, and all that stuff. But they're always typically more important to the media, but also the voting public. Budgets seem to be important to everybody. Everybody wants to know where their money is going, what it's being spent on, how it's being spent, all that kind of stuff. Cemeteries, I have some experience with cemeteries over the years, and I've found cemetery records are really important to genealogists, but also to folks who may have adopted children, and maybe those children would want to learn more about parents that they didn't know about. I wasn't aware of that until I was managing, had a hand in managing cemeteries. Business licenses, very important to entrepreneurs, but also economic development folks. Like, how many businesses do we have? What kind of businesses do we have? Are there sectors that we need to attract? Do we need to diversify a little bit more? Those can be really vital statistics for them. Boat launch permits are really important. I mean, they're important to the boaters, of course, because they want to get on the water. But I think they're most important to the municipality, mainly because you can see how many people use your boat launch in a given year, and it will help you determine, like, do we need to improve the dock? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to add another dock? Do we have enough space? Do we have the room? If it's not being used, okay, that's fine. Can we delay refurbishment or repairs or anything like that, but it really will tell how many people are using it. Tax bills, super important to real estate agent, people buying a home. I can tell you the first thing that I look at when I'm buying a house, especially this one in Las Vegas, what was the tax bill? It's very important for home buyers to know, but also real estate agents as well. Assessment documents, important for assessors, real estate agents again, and home buyers. Excuse me. Take a little water here. And then municipal emails, really to everyone, open records requests, the media, the public, everything that we do is under a microscope and scrutinized, and it's just something that we have to kind of deal with, but it's part of the job. So those emails are held on and kept for everybody. So some implementation ideas and some thoughts to share about maybe transitioning to more digital type records. There's kind of two camps that you can live in. You can either go for it all at once and do everything all at once, or you can do it piece by piece. There's really not a right or a wrong answer. It's totally up to you. If you're comfortable making a complete switch to a fully digital solution, awesome. If not, go, take baby steps and do it piece by piece. A suggestion I always offer, whether I'm teaching my students, I'm speaking at a conference, or I'm here, I always suggest continuing those paper processes, but only for a limited time. It's good to be able to serve all of your residents. You're going to have kind of those, again, I mentioned Betty at the beginning. You're going to have those Bettys of the world who really prefer paper, who aren't comfortable using credit cards or online payments and things like that. And that's fine. You can ease them into the process by continuing that paper process and maybe giving them a heads up, 6 months from now, a year from now, this isn't going to be available. So, you should start to familiarize with it. But if you do concurrent processes at the same time, it's really it's not efficient at all. You really got to stick to one or the other. And then kind of my last overall tip is do something because something is better than nothing. The private sector really had to innovate and change how they do things because of COVID. Local government did to a point, but once COVID subsided, either we reverted back to pre-pandemic ways or just kind of kept doing what we were doing. And so it's, again, the public has this expectation now of having online payments, having online access to records, cemetery records, like just all the things that are paper-based really are moving more towards online. And so that's something that you have to keep in mind as you go along. So some benefits and some kind of more topics with that. A document map. This is a relatively new term, but it talks about the life cycle of a given record, and from its inception to its destruction, maybe where it's housed, what information is kept in it. It's a really cool thing that I never had when I was a clerk. I never had a document map, so it's something almost like a table of contents for your records that you really could start to do. Paperless packets. This is it. I mean, some municipalities have packets that are 150, 200, 300 pages long. That's a lot of paper. Like, it's a lot of paper to waste. It's also a lot of paper for your council members and your board members to go through. So paperless packets are a really good place to start. Digital payments at a boat launch. Again, how many times, if you have a boat launch or if you have some kind of a self-help permit, how many times have you gotten an empty envelope or maybe not enough cash, or people don't have checks? Set up a QR code, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Set up a QR code, let people scan it and pay with their credit card. They're out on the water right away. An online bartender license application. I always use this example because typically bartenders don't work first shift. They work second or third. And so when you are at work, they are sleeping. And when they are at work, you are sleeping. So what's a way that you can make your documents and your records more accessible to them? Put them online so they can take care of it themselves. Make them online and fillable and submittable so they don't have to mail them to you. You don't have to deal with the paper. An online calendar for park reservations. And it's kind of the same concept. Instead of people having to call you and be like, when is the park available? When is the shelter available? When is the town hall available? Give them a calendar that they can look at You don't have to house that stuff. You don't have to keep that paper planner. Put all the information online, and it really allows them to help themselves. Scannable QR codes for links. QR codes are taking off like I've never seen them before. It truly is amazing in the past couple of years, the number of places that I have seen QR codes appear, especially here in Las Vegas, but really all over the country, and even on like TV and online and things like that. You can use a QR code for online payment, for a link to a document. You can post them anywhere. You can utilize them for anything. It is truly amazing what they're capable of. So if you can incorporate that into your municipality, that will definitely help remove some paper from any process. I mentioned this already, helping people help themselves. And this really is important for two reasons. One, people are moving more towards a self-help environment, but two, it takes work off of your plate and puts it on theirs. And so it's really important. It will free you up to do more important topics. Transfer physical records to electronic ones. If your law allows it to do that, to be done, do that. Again, I remember in Wisconsin, we had to have, excuse me, we had to have one physical copy of the minutes forever. So there was no reason to have multiple copies, but if there was anything electronic, we would house that somewhere, be it on the website, on a flash drive, on a cloud server, on a hard server, anything like that. But if you can make something digital, make it digital. It will free up more physical space to allow you to store more stuff. So it's really good for the environment. Less paper means more trees, and I love trees. We typically have more palm trees here in Las Vegas, but I love trees. They're awesome. And if we save more paper, we can save more trees, which is huge. But really, I think maybe the biggest thing is about going more digital is being more efficient. This is a big deal for the budget. And I say that because not everybody's budget is going up, 5, 10, 15%. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 2%. And so we're constantly being asked to do more with the same amount of money or less as last year. And it's a really great way to kind of stretch those dollars and make sure that you're doing what you need to be doing, but in an efficient manner. And so we're coming into the home stretch here. Some resources, and some of this is a little bit more Wisconsin focused, but the Wisconsin Historical Society has a really great kind of listing of stuff here. And then Andrew Baraniak is kind of the Leeds records guy. I've known him for a number of years. He's still there. He's a great resource. He knows a ton about records. He's kind of like in my head, he's kind of like the Superman of records. I don't know if he knows that I would call him that, but I'm calling him that. He knows everything. But so just kind of some tips and some resources for you. Do you have a records ordinance in your municipality? If you don't, you should. Do you have a records retention schedule? And if you don't, do you have one that you can adopt? In Wisconsin, we adopted the Wisconsin Historical Society's one that was governed by the Public Records Board. So if you have one, great. If you don't, find one and have one. People will ask for that. And it really does govern how you manage your records. In Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Elections Commission was really in charge of the records retention schedule only for elections. It might be different in other states, and that's cool if it is. Just educate yourself on what those are. Your attorney is a really great resource. It's an expensive one, but also a great resource. So just keep that in mind. Your state clerks association, your state treasurers association, if you have a statewide listserv that you can just send emails out on. I know in Wisconsin we had one. I'm not sure if everybody does, but it was always a great resource to just send a quick question out and get 100 answers in a half an hour. It was great. Clerks from municipalities of the same kind. Look for other cities, other villages, other towns. What do you guys do? I think the other thing that's super important, at least for me, is to dispose of records that you don't need. And this includes multiple copies. One of my favorite days in Oakland was when our public works guys would fire up the burn pile, literally a huge pile of leaves and branches and twigs that people would bring in, all their yard waste. And when it was time to do that, I always had a couple of boxes of records to destroy that I would dump on there. I never brought any marshmallows with me to roast, and I was always disappointed I didn't do that. But it's a great way. It was a great way to make sure those records got destroyed. But make sure you do that. Dispose of things you don't need, including multiple copies, because it will free up more space. And it's like, why would you keep 5 copies of something when you maybe only need one or the original? It's just not worth it. And then finally, I've got some next steps and some questions to ask. If you have a solution that you're looking at, and of course, we want you to partner with us. Do you have money available? How much do you have available? Do you have the support of the board? Are there other departments or staff members that you can bring in and partner with and maybe spread that cost out as opposed to just the clerk's office? Could you get police or fire or public works to help with that? Do you have time to implement a new solution? That's really important too. If you don't have the time, like in Wisconsin, this is a 4-election year. I would not suggest anybody in Wisconsin do anything until next year because it's elections all year. So make sure you have the time. Are you better serving your residents and your constituents? This is really important too. If you're not better serving them, then why are you doing it? And that's a really significant question to ask. If it's not saving time or saving money or maybe even making a little bit money, it probably isn't worth doing. So those are questions to ask as you move along. Can you expand on something that you already do? Can you eliminate some paper from an already existing paper process? Just look at it from kind of a 10,000 foot view, but then come down and look really at like a 100-foot view. And what can we eliminate, if anything? Can you find something that will fit your municipality? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. One thing I will say, though, connected to that is that size doesn't matter. Whether you're a municipality of 400 or 40,000, there are so many solutions out there that really make your lives so much easier. And so, of course, again, it's a little biased. It is. That's why we're here. We want you to work with us, but there are a lot of solutions out there and so many conversations that you can have. So make sure, don't think just because you're small doesn't mean that somebody can't work with you, because I guarantee you they can. And one thing that I've learned from some of my former colleagues back home in Wisconsin is that if you have some sort of a legacy system that you're dumping money into that just is old and maybe was customized for you or built for you, get rid of it, because it's a money pit. I used to own a boat. A boat is the greatest money pit ever, but it's still a money pit. And a legacy system is the same thing. It's good for a few years, and then eventually it won't be able to be updated, and you're going to have to decide what you want to do. Stop dumping money into it. Find something that's easier. It maybe is 10 or 15 years old, and people don't like it anymore, and just move on from it. So we're going to tie things together here with Betty and Bella one more time. When you're looking at solutions, when you're looking at what we have to offer, what will work for everyone? Well, and I don't even just mean the staff, I mean residents as well. Do you have a predominantly younger population? Do you have a predominantly older population? Is it a mix? Are people moving in and out? It's crazy. So what you guys have to decide is, do you have something that will work for everybody, not only the staff, but for the residents as well? Ideally, Bella will take over for Betty, but maybe she won't if Betty doesn't want to adapt. And that's something to think of, because we want to keep our employees happy. We want to keep them around. Training new employees can be really tough and time consuming and costly. And so what can we do to move things along to make sure that both Betty and Bella are doing what they need to do, but also serving the residents and the constituents as well? If Bella's not happy, she'll go find somebody else who is moving in that direction. And so that's something for Betty to keep in mind. Whether we like it or not, technology is becoming more a part of our lives. AI is definitely a part of that. It's a little scary, but it's really cool what it can do. And it's kind of what the buzzword is now and what's going on. But it's here. It's coming. It's here. We have to prepare for it, but we also have to get on board with it. There will always be a need for Betty's, and there always will be a need for Bella's. There's going to be some of those paper processes that are always going to be paper no matter what, and that might just be the best thing. Conversely, there's always going to be the need for electronic processes and doing things on your phone or on your computer, and we're just going to have to weigh those against each other. But one is not better than the other. It's really great when you can combine those forces and really make some magic happen. And really, to tie it all together, TownWeb is here to help the Bettys and the Bellas of the world. We have solutions that will make your lives easier, that will make serving your residents easier and better. And so that's, we're here for education, but we also want to work with you as well. And so that really brings us to the end. I'm going to do a quick stop sharing of my screen, but I want to thank all of you for coming here. I went maybe like 5 minutes over, but we're still under time. But we definitely have some time for questions. So let me just jump back over to my screen here. So if you have any questions, definitely drop them in either the question box or the chat box, and we'll stick around probably for a good 5-10 minutes. I'm going to take another quick shot of water, but happy to answer any questions, or if you guys need any information on anything, want to share anything, your record retention schedule, go right ahead. I see we have something coming in from Paula, so I'm eagerly awaiting. Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. Paula asked if we offer some tools beyond website services. Yes, we absolutely do. We offer online permits, online reservations, online licensing, online payments, automated clerk minutes with some AI. I mentioned AI with some AI interaction on there. So yes, we absolutely do. If you'd like, you can reach out. I'm going to throw my email in. Shoot me an email, and we can definitely get you set up with some more information and talk a little bit more deeper about it. But yes, we do. That's a great question. Thank you, Paula. Any other questions? We definitely still have a few minutes before we'll disconnect here, but the wind's blowing a little bit outside. It's still sunny, but it's definitely got time. Maybe if anybody, I would love it if somebody could share what their most difficult record to manage is. I've done a lot of talking. I'd love to see what you guys have in terms of what's tough for you guys. I promise I won't call on you like I do my students. See, we've got something coming in from Michael, so let's see. Yes, election-related forms, absolutely. And Michael's got building permits. Yes, absolutely. They are. You're both spot on. Building permits are tough. Building permits are handled by multiple departments. Election-related forms, just, I mean, ridiculous, just ridiculous. Thank you for sharing. I'll just share this just because for me, it's a cool short story. I used to with our election forms in Wisconsin, I had mentioned it was 22 months, and then we could destroy it. What I used to do is I would put everything in a box, put it up on a shelf in our vault, and I would have a box. I would have like 8 or 9 boxes in a row with when they needed to be destroyed, and so every year one would come down out to the burn pile, one would go up to replace it. It was just kind of a little assembly line like that. But for me, that was just kind of the easiest way to stay sane and keep things managed in a way that I can understand if I needed to go back to them. Cool stuff. We've got another minute left. Any other questions? Any other comments? Anything that anybody would like to share before we disconnect here? I'm not seeing anything. So if you'd like to reach out, my email is right there, chris.estrella@haygov.com. Everybody's in different time zones, and the Truman Show was on last night. So in the spirit of that, wherever you are, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you. And I hope you all have a great week and 2 days till Friday. Take care, everybody. Have an awesome day.
So good. So good. I really liked the way that you tied it in at the end, going, the world needs Bellas and the world needs Betties. That's so nice. That's so sweet.
I mean, I love my Betties. I love my Bellas, but I love my
Yes.
Betties too. They're awesome.
Yes. Yes. Happy days. I'm gonna end this and then yeah, the recording will go out automatically. And I did receive your
Okay.
message about the WTA. It's good that you messaged me when you did, because I was working on it end of last week. So yes.
Yeah, and the reason I'll just tell you because we're here. I'm thinking about, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do it yet, but I'm thinking about if you're going to send me, and if you're not, that's fine. But if I end up going, I'm thinking about extending my stay there just to be home because I miss people, but like
Yes.
taking like a working vacation and like
Yeah.
staying for like another, like, I don't know, a week or something like that, just to stay home and see people. Because I miss everybody. Like, I don't see anybody anymore because I live here and they live there. So
Of course.
I'm thinking about it, but
Are you still
so if
going
I go,
to...
great, and if I don't, that's fine too. But
That's okay. Let's see. Like, you are busy the time of the UMCA, right?
I am. I'm going to be in Oregon for that one.
Yeah.
So I can't go to Utah because it's literally the same 3 days.
I remember.
Which kind of sucks because I wouldn't mind going to Utah.
Yes, and I think I think you've been
I remember they
there.
wanted me to come last year.
Yes.
Yeah, they wanted me to come last year, and it was like, I'll be in Utah, so I can't go to Oregon. And then they were like, well, we want you to come speak. So they locked me up in like January. So now I can't go to Utah because I'll be in Oregon.
Well, that's okay. When we get to